Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Umineko.
Load. Good.
I'm not that dense, thank you very much. Today we are actually joined by a real Umineko. Let me just take a photo of the little guy. We've got Gulliver from Animal Crossing, a real life Umineko.
Uwu.
So I acquired him recently. We went to the Sea Life Aquarium and got, what's it called, during the Animal Crossing promotion, and I got Gulliver. I'm very happy. But we continue off where we left off with Umineko. Rain. All that could be heard was the sound of rain and the voices from the kids' TV program that Maria was watching. Right, Maria doesn't know her mum's dead. And the engrossed Maria's cackling voice. In other words, what greeted them as they returned, dumbfounded from that horrible, bizarre scene, was the voice of Maria as she rolled around laughing at the TV. Those who returned to the room didn't know how to explain to Maria that her mother was dead and were trapped by a suffocating silence. At first, Maria returned their stares with a dubious look. I had an extra Mentos. Where did it go? Did I eat it? I think I must have eaten it. Sorry, I have like little Mentos wrappers everywhere.
Lol.
But when she realized they weren't trying to blame her for anything, she ignored them again and immersed herself in the TV program. The children wordlessly sat down heavily on the sofa. Their minds were probably blank from the state of their shock. Everyone had already cried and mourned so much, but now they just vaguely sat there, their faces seeming to have lost all emotions. Only Kanon had returned to his usual calm expression. However, that probably didn't mean he'd be able to wipe out the shock. Nothing was reflected in his eyes as he stared into empty space. Hideyoshi kept on fidgeting, and every time he remembered that horrible scene, he started muttering about how he couldn't believe it, how it couldn't have been something from this world, how it must have been the work of demons. Every now and then, his muttering produced a question directed at Nanjo, but the latter kept repeating a calm, doctor-like manner that nothing could be understood by only glancing at the scene. And that until the police arrived, they wouldn't learn anything. I just realized I turned up my volume. I need to turn it down again.
Yeah. Lol.
However, Nanjo only appeared calm next to Hideyoshi, who simply couldn't suppress his agitation and fear. In fact, Nanjo had also received a huge shock and his face was deathly pale. Maybe that atmosphere was why she tried to rise to the challenge and take charge. Natsuhi appeared to be unchanged from her normal attitude, but she briskly gave directions. I will go see Father. Genji, quickly contact the police. Certainly. I wonder if you would only allow me to tag along Natsuhi-ne-san? Since Kraus-ni-san is now gone, the task of aiding father has been left to me. It would be improper of me to relax here while relying entirely on you. Natsuhi was struck speechless by Ava's aggressive move in a situation like this. She seemed to be claiming that with Kraus dead, the one to take responsibility shouldn't be his wife, but herself, the next highly ranked in the family. Or maybe she hadn't been at all happy when Natsuhi took command without reference to her in such an extreme situation. However, even Ava's mind had been blank from shock until a moment ago. She only came to her senses after Natsuhi started giving orders. Ugh. Just do as you like. Natsuhi started walking without saying a word more. Ava followed behind her. Oh my god, Kumasawa, where have you been for like the last 4 hours?
She's the culprit, OMG.
Oh my god, it's secretly her. She's Beatrice. As they did, Kumasawa ran into the parlor. She usually wasn't the kind of person to run around, so under normal conditions, most people would have taken her entrance as a sign that something was the matter. But because everyone was still stricken with shock, they hardly even noticed her.
Madame!
If you're looking for Natsu-san, she went to see father. She'll probably be back soon. Because I have less lines to say as different characters, I think voicing them will be a lot easier. What happened, Kumasawa-san?
You see, in the dining hall there was blood!
The ears of everyone in the parlor twitched. Everyone thought the same thing. I hope I misheard that. Any container can hold only so much, and no one here would be capable of handling yet another tragedy. So, they all thought it. I hope I misheard that. What happened in the dining hall?
When I went to the dining hall to set up for breakfast,
The first one to start running was George. His harsh footsteps jogged Hideyoshi and Nanjo to their senses as they chased after him. Battler and the others followed. They flew into the dining hall one after the other, but they didn't find any change that might have caused Kumasawa to go pale. Those who had viewed that gruesome scene in the storehouse... To those who had viewed the gruesome scene in the storehouse, it was a bit of an anticlimax. However, Kumasawa, who had followed them, pointed it out. There really were some traces of blood remaining on the floor. Compared to that terrible scene, it wasn't very impressive. However, if you calmly thought about it, this would definitely indicated the loss of a lot of blood. There's another puddle over there. What in the world? It appears a great deal of time has passed. It's probably safe to say they were killed here last night. It definitely looks that way. We were talking together in the dining hall until late into the night. After that, someone must have forced their way in. Dad, when did you and Mom slip out of the meeting and go to sleep? It was a little past midnight. So, we should probably assume it happened after that. Are you kidding me? Give me a break. Lady, please stay strong. After seeing the hell on earth in the storehouse, this is nothing. Really? Good for you. I feel like my head's gonna explode. This is the dining hall, right? Every day. This is where I'd eat, complain about school, complain about homework, talk to my dad about my grades. That's what this place is to me. Milady, it wouldn't be good to remain here any longer. Let's return to the parlor. I agree. Uncle Hideyoshi, I think this room will be really important to the police. Don't you think it'd be bad if we trampled all over it? Battler proposed this in a slightly firm voice, along with Kanon. He grabbed the pale and shaking Jessica's shoulders. Everything is just as Battler had said. Everything is just as Battler had said. There's nothing more to be gained from remaining in this room. Nanjo spoke while looking at everyone's pale faces. Even though that horrible scene in the storehouse felt like something not of this world, at least we'd been able to leave, to cut ourselves off from that place and run away. Everyone had shared that feeling. However, this dining hall was different. It was in the mansion, the main building on the estate, and Jessica had said it. It should not have been one of the most calming places even inside the mansion. It was where all the relatives had eaten lunch and dinner the day before. The shock of seeing this place smeared with blood reminded us that horrible spectacle in the storehouse, and forced us to accept that we hadn't really been able to run away from that scene of that tragedy. I agree too. The culprit might have left traces in this room. Amateurs like us shouldn't stir the place up. Let's leave quickly. Quickly. Hideyoshi also understood the meaning of what Battler had said and pushed everyone to hurry out of the dining hall. The way we were then, looking at that blood any longer would have been too harsh. Nobody went against his word. Everyone raced each other out of the dining hall. It was almost as though the last person in the room would be trapped in there all alone.
Umineko no Nakukoroni.
Once in the hallway, we lent a hand to Kumasawa, who was still trembling and leaning against the wall, and we all headed back to the parlor together. Then, Genji returned. Oh, Genji-san. Were you able to contact the police? As to that, I'm afraid I must apologize. I don't know if it was a failure of the radio or something else that caused it, but... What? So you couldn't contact the police? Both the phone and the radio failed. My apologies. A boat will be arriving on Monday morning, and I believe we'll be able to borrow their communications equipment. Isn't there a boat on this island? Can't we just take a little trip out to Nijima Police Department? Hideyoshi-san, that would be impossible with this weather. At the very least, we can't do anything until the typhoon passes us by. Kurasama's boat is being repaired and is not on the island. Therefore, we must wait for the boat coming on Monday. How could this happen? 6 people are dead. The phones and radios aren't working, and there's no boat. So, until the typhoon passes and the boat comes in, in other words, until tomorrow morning, we're gonna be stuck here on this island, unable to contact the police, aren't we? Which means that not just us, but the criminal who killed everyone is also confined to this island. That certainly follows. The culprit who killed everyone is still here on the island. So that bastard who killed Dad and the others must still be hiding somewhere, unable to escape. Damn it! 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 I'll catch that bastard! No way I'll hand him over to the police. I'll slice him to bits myself. Ah! Poor Maria! That girl does not know anything that's happening right now. Oh, Lord. Maria had finally realized something odd was happening in the parlor. Poor Maria.
Poor
Rather
sweetie.
than noticing something odd, it was probably better to say she felt unhappy and neglected since everyone was getting so excited about something only she didn't know about. Is it? Jessica Onechan, did someone die? Maria! Bad! No! You shouldn't know that! And what's with that smug smile? You're 10! The way she spoke was completely calm. Just as though she was talking about someone who had appeared on television drama. As though it was someone else's problem. Jessica probably didn't like that. As though trying to say, can't you tell just by looking at me, overwhelmed with grief? She flared up at Maria. They all died. Everyone. Everyone. My dad, Battler's parents, Goda-san and Shannon, and even your mother too. Stop it, Jessica-chan. You aren't the only one who's sad. Maria-san. Maria. I know this will come as a shock, but please listen. Your mother has died. Mama died? Oh? Yeah, someone killed her. Jeez! Thanks, Battler. That's a wonderful way of just saying that to like a 10-year-old. How old is she again? 12?
Maybe Battler's also autistic.
Maybe. I know it's sad to say, but stay strong. How many people died? 6 people! 6 people! Damn it! How could anyone do something that cruel? There's a limit to how cruel you can be if you're human. I don't know who it is, but the culprit isn't human. There's no way their blood is red. Is it? The culprit isn't human. It's just the... chosen by the... Huh? Hey, Maria, did you say something just now? Maria had just said something. But since the words were so remotely separated from the flow of the context of the conversation, I couldn't understand them for a section. When I tried to ask her to repeat it again, I was shocked by the sudden sound of Natsuhi's loud voice coming from the entrance of the parlor. It looked like Aunt Natsuhi and Aunt Aunt Eva had returned from their trip to see grandfather. You can't contact them even with the radio? If we can't use it at a time like this, then why do we have the emergency radio? My apologies. It was supposed to have maintenance inspection every year. Wait, you don't have one of those boat signaling devices that make a flashing light, a flare? Couldn't you use that to contact the next island? We do not have such equipment. My sincere apologies. Just then, Kumasawa-san... Oh, I'm so used to saying Kumasawa-san. So, Kumasawa arrived confused me. Pushing a serving cart loaded with breakfast. Since there was no way we'd be able to eat in the dining hall, Hideyoshi had ordered to take it to the parlor. Why are we eating breakfast in here? Ah, Natsuhi-san. I'll tell you later. More importantly, Ava, how's father? Judging by the fact that he's not with you, it seems he will not leave his room, not even for a situation like this. He wasn't there. The room was empty. What Where could he have gone at a time like this? Do you mean to say the master left his study? That is correct. I was surprised myself. I wonder when he left his room. Do any of you have an idea? Natsuhi looked at Genji and Kanon as she said this. Maybe she was trying to ask whether the servants who served directly under the one-winged eagle knew of a place he might go. However, it was probably the other way round. Their faces made it clear that those who knew Kinzo best realized even more than the rest how impossible it was for him to leave his room. Even we have no idea. As you all know, within the study, the master had everything from a place to sleep to a bathroom. I couldn't imagine him leaving that room except for a significant reason. In that case...
Is it just me or does this... Oh, sorry. Like, this music kind of, like, gives Bowser's Castle energy?
It kind of does. In that case... Oh. In that case, what? Is it natural to assume that one of those significant reasons came up? We still cannot be certain that's the case. Anyway, he's a fickle person, so it's impossible. It's possible he went for a walk by himself, unaware of the current situation. If that's the case, then we must act all in haste to tell him what happened and ask for instructions. That's right. Although I don't want to think about it, it's possible something has happened to him, isn't it? I'd rather not even consider such a sinister possibility. No one had seen Kinzo since the discovery of those 6 terrible corpses. On top of that, the phones were broken, the radio wouldn't reach anyone, and there was no way to contact the police. Apparently, the typhoon would leave tomorrow, and a boat would come. But until then, no one could rely on anyone outside the island, nor could they escape the island. Wouldn't they find it weird that the TV is still working, but the phones aren't? Because... what's it called? I guess...
Who would think analog TVs in the 80s would be that good in a typhoon?
Yeah, especially with, what's it called? Especially, like, I guess in that instance it would definitely say, like, indicate that the phones were cut instead of not being like active, but like the radio and the phone's not working, but the TV is. Surely that should be brought up. A tragedy had hit everyone so abruptly that they'd lost all their composure. Everyone felt a heavy silence. Everyone was impatient. Even though they needed to do something, they couldn't think of anything. So, some of them held their heads in their arms while others got irritated. Right now, no one could explain what was occurring on this island, Rokkenjima. Is the... No, okay. After that, we ate the breakfast Kumasawa-san had made, which felt dry and tasteless. Of course, this was right after something like that had happened. No one felt particularly hungry. However, we understood logistically that not eating would weaken our bodies. It would also be rude to Kumasawa-san, who had made the breakfast. Kumasawa-san... See, what's it called? Now they're saying Kumasawa-san. Why did it just say Kumasawa before? Had taken some unusual Western vegetables, one that Goro-san had probably ordered for his ultra-elaborate meals, and cooked them in a Japanese style, which had made them turn an unpleasant colour. As to what Goro-san had been planning to cook with those ingredients, right then, I couldn't even imagine it. If I did think about it, I'd be reminded of the way Goro-san died, and a sour taste would fill the inside of my mouth. Everyone pretended to eat for the time being, but of course, no one made such progress. Then we began pooling our knowledge of the current situation. First off, 6 people, which included Uncle Kraus, my dad, Kiri-san, Aunt Rosa, Goro-san, and Shannon-chan, had been found in the Rose Garden storehouse as brutally mutilated corpses. And yet, we still couldn't contact the police since both the phones and the radio were unusable. So, until the typhoon passed, there was nothing we could do. Furthermore, Grandfather, who we might have hoped to be able to show a little bit of leadership in this kind of situation, had disappeared some time ago. Goro-san hadn't made breakfast, so Grandfather's stomach must have been empty. And if he had just been taking a casual walk, we should have been able to hear him whining about how hungry he was by now. And despite that, he hadn't appeared. There was more than a small chance that he'd gotten caught up in this crime. According to my aunts, on the way back from Kinzo's study, they'd searched for him, calling out on every floor, but they were unable to find him. Considering the timing of all of it, it's only reasonable to assume that this disappearance had something to do with the crime. We figured Dad and the rest were probably killed in the dining hall, then painstakingly moved to the storehouse. So maybe Grandfather had already been killed and dragged to some place which we simply haven't discovered yet. No one actually said it out loud, but this theory seemed extremely convincing. We will go check that all of the windows and doors are locked. We must also conduct a thorough search. Of for father. The children must remain in this room. Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san, I'm sorry, but please stay here with the children. Do not tell me that Natsuhi dies.
I can't say anything, Brooklyn.
I like to ask you the same, Dr. Nanjo. I understand. I will wait here.
Understand.
Aunt Natsuhi followed the servants, Genji-san, Kumasawa-san, and Kanokun out of the parlor. All that was left was Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi, Dr. Nanjo, and the 4 of us children, a total of 7 people. Let's all stick together and maybe watch some television while we wait. Why is the television still working? No, I doubt we'll find anything good in the middle of the day on Sunday. Uncle Hideyoshi started acting cheerfully, trying to brighten up this gloomy atmosphere. It will? Good show. Watch it. It will? Oh, really? Sorry, drinking water. Stay hydrated, people.
That's all good. Drinking water. Drink your water.
You really want to watch TV, Maria-chan.
Back.
Rudolph is the thing in the background. Drink your water. Huh? Fucking drink it. I'm Rudolph. I'm the ghost. Drink your water. Stay hydrated. Oh, really? You want to watch TV, Maria-chan? Then come and watch it with your uncle. Maria was the only one who joined in. Even though Maria had been told of her mother's death, she really didn't show the slightest flicker in her emotions. Was it really normal for, oh, she's 9, for a 9-year-old like Maria to act so much like a very young child? Everyone else's mood failed to improve, and they sank absentmindedly into their sofas. Anarchy, can I ask you something? What is it? Just now, in the storehouse, you said something about Shannon and a ring. Did you give that to her? George Anarchy didn't answer, but he hung his head and closed both his eyes. There could be no clearer response. Quit it, Battler. Figure it out yourself. You're right. I shouldn't have asked. That's right. Oh, that's right. It was me. Last night, I proposed to her. That was when I gave her that ring. I told her that tomorrow, she put it on whatever finger she wants as her answer. I guess that was a pretty pretentious thing to say. And that ring had been on the finger of Shannon Chun's left hand. Well, several years ago, Shannon came to me asking for advice about you, George Nissan. I wonder what she could have said. Shannon was always really bad at lying. It was obvious pretty quickly that you were the one Shannon was talking about. She asked whether it'd be okay for her to get too close to someone even though she was only a servant. She asked about what kinds of things boys like, what kinds of clothes he should wear to make them happy, lots of stuff like that. I guess you could say I felt envious hearing her say that. So then she was given an engagement ring and it all ended right there. Different people value things differently. But being proposed to by a man, well, it can be the high point of your life. So I'm sure last night... Why is this going so fast? Oh my god. So I'm sure last night, Shannon was so happy from the bottom of her heart. Happier than she's ever been since the day of her birth. George Anarchy sighed deeply without raising his head. Or maybe the tears had risen to his eyes. It seems Shannon was on duty last night in the guest... It seems Shannon was on duty in the guest house last night, but because she was too embarrassed to go to the guest house with me, she went over to the mansion. Think about how Shannon must have felt. When you receive an engagement ring, then no matter how much warning you're given beforehand, it's perfectly normal to get so excited that your mind goes blank. She must have been incredibly embarrassed. And then Shannon went to the mansion, even though she hadn't been assigned there, helped go to Sam with his work and got caught up in this crime. If only I hadn't given her that ring on that day, in that place. Ah! Why? Oh my god! Why does this keep happening? I don't keep clicking. I'm not clicking the thing, but it keeps like skipping thing.
Bloody Umineko. Bloody seagull.
If only I hadn't given her that ring on that day in that place, Shannon wouldn't have... Sale wouldn't have been caught up in that crime. Yeah! I don't know what that... Yeah! Anarchy. That's the one place where you're wrong. It's definitely wrong. So don't cry anymore. Ah! I don't know where that cry came out of in my body.
The anguish of needing to voice a pedophile.
The anguish of needing to voice George.
Yeah.
Batlakun, let's leave him be. Aunt Ava said, and Aunt Eva said that. I stopped talking to him.
Eva
Misplaced words
deserves
come-
a better son than George.
Mm,
That's all I can say. She deserves a better son than George.
Misplaced words of comfort might actually do more harm than good. Jessica sat down next to Anarchy and put an arm around him. Maybe only Jessica, who had known about Anarchy and Shannon's love since the beginning, and who had even discussed their relationship with Shannon, could comfort Anarchy now. I went over to Aunt Eva and sat down on the opposite sofa. Batlakun, you really are strong. It looks like you've kept a good hold on yourself. Well, look at the depth of love becomes the depth of the wounds, right? After all, it's not like how that old bastard died had anything to do with me. I feel bad about Kiri-san, but, well, she wasn't actually my parent. My, if that's so, you certainly were crying a lot back then. Well, I did think at least that much crying was due as gratitude for a parent who raised me. The speed of that changeover and the dry tone must have come from Rudolph. That kid would always get violently happy, sad, and angry. But he's always regained his cool composure immediately afterwards. It's nothing like that. I haven't really been able to get over the shock yet. I think the only difference between me and everyone else is the kinds of emotions that stirred in me. What do you mean? I've been acting much calmer than Georgianiki and Jessica. That wasn't because my sadness was any less intense or because I'd already recovered. My sadness was simply getting replaced gradually with a different emotion. Rather than sad, I'd say I'm more pissed off. What bastard did this and where? It's kind of been eating at me, and I didn't get a chance to smack him upside the face. That was really what I wanted to do. I couldn't forgive myself as I sat there, overwhelmed with sadness and hugging my knees. Since the time Dad and the others were killed, the island has been covered by the typhoon, which means that the bastard responsible for all this is still somewhere on this island. Yes, that would seem to be the case. I wonder if they're hiding somewhere in that dark forest even now. I felt like I had a very similar conversation with Kiri-san the night before. That's right. After the letter from the person claiming to be Beatrice appeared at the dining table last night, we talked about whether or not a 19th person actually exists. Aunt Eva, do you think this murder has anything to do with the letter from Beatrice last night? Ah, that one? I wonder. All of the siblings agreed that this mysterious letter was sent to further complicate the problems from father's inheritance. As to whether that and the case of this morning are related, it's impossible to tell at this stage. Was that letter really given to Maria by some witch called Beatrice? How could it be? All of it was a farce devised by father, wasn't it? He made Chan or someone wear the dress from that portrait to trick Maria-chan, right? Isn't that just kind of overly intricate prank that father would pull? Last night, I talked with Kiri-san about whether Beatrice actually exists, and Kiri-san also said that Beatrice was probably one of the 18 of us. Isn't that obvious? But there's no one else on this island besides us, right? Then there must be someone amongst us who's pretending to be Beatrice. There's no one else but us on this island, you think? Obviously, right? Are you saying there could be someone else here other than us? No one is on this island except us. There are only 18 people. So the one pretending to be Beatrice has to be one of those 18. Kiri-san denied the existence of a 19th person by spinning the chessboard around. Even though Aunt Eva hadn't constructed an argument that complicated, her opinion was at least the same. Except, if that's the case, our situation starts to look very ugly. At the time of Beatrice's letter, the whole thing could be passed off as a prank set up by someone or another. However, if we're assuming there's no 19th person, we can't ignore this anymore. In other words, if there's no 19th person, then the culprit who killed Dad and the others is also one of the 18, right? So in other words, the person who killed them is one of the people inside this very mansion right now. Aunt Eva smiled meaningfully. It, it's, it looks like she thought of this conclusion should have been obvious from the very beginning. The culprit carried the bodies of those 6 into the storehouse. But even that was an impressive feat, don't you think? That shutter is always closed and locked, right? In other words, in order to carry them into the storehouse, the culprit would need to unlock the shutter. Understand? Is it possible the shutter was left open by mistake that day? The servant said it's always locked. In other words, unless the culprit took the keys from the servant room, there's no way they could have opened the storehouse. I wonder if the key in the servant room was the only one. Genji-san said that was the case, which means that the culprit knew where the single key was kept and took it. Just now, I watched Kanon-kun return the key to the servant room. The wall was packed with keys, and I don't think a novice would know where or what those keys went to. The culprit was miraculously able to find the storehouse key among all those. Furthermore, even though the key didn't have a tag or anything sticking to it, they knew it was the key to the storehouse behind the rose garden. And that means they also knew where the storehouse was. I'll say it even clearer. The culprit knew the inside of the servant room well. Her argument was extremely plain and clear. If the bodies had been thrown somewhere in the bushes of the rose garden, there wouldn't have been much to go on. However, if there was only one key to the storehouse in the servant room, and it was stored with such a large group of keys, a novice would not be able to tell them apart. This meant the culprit was someone who went into the servant room a lot and was familiar with the location of the keys. The family members didn't normally go into the servant room, which meant that one of the servants is the culprit. I'm sorry, but even I can't tell you any more than that. However, I'll tell you one thing. What's that? It's reasonable to think that the culprits are multiple in numbers and are fairly well armed. They'd have to be, wouldn't they? They had to assault the 4 in the dining hall and kill them, drag a total of 6 bodies all the way to the storehouse beyond the rose garden, and arrange for that disgusting makeup and the graffiti on the shutter. There was no way a single culprit could carry out all of that on their own, right? It made sense. It probably wouldn't be possible for a single person with enough time, but it would also take so incredibly long. It was probably safe to assume that a significant number of people were involved. Phew. So what you're saying is that maybe all of the servants were in cahoots. Please keep it quiet, okay? It wouldn't be right to voice mere speculation like this. And if it really was true, what would you do next? They might not let us leave here alive. This is an opponent who had no trouble killing Nissan and 3 others. Right now, the only ones who I can count on to fight with me are the 3 in my family, maybe you, which comes to a total of 4, right? We're no better off than they were last night. In short, it'd be easy for the culprits to massacre the rest of us. I'd been playing detective with Aunt Eva, trying to expose the person who had killed Dad and the rest before the police did. If only I could cleverly penetrate the culprit's identity and stick the proof in their face. I'd been so sure that just like in one of those detective movies, the culprit would then give up and surrender. However, the culprit would only surrender if there was no way for them to fight back. The culprits behind the crime on this island were far from helpless, and might have been able to massacre all of the remaining people here. And on top of that, this island was like a giant closed room cut off from the outside world by the typhoon. So, if they had a full day until tomorrow to kill, scheme, and camouflage themselves. In short, it wasn't a safe atmosphere where we could get very far by playing detective. To the contrary, we were playing a stage where we had to be scared stiff, since playing detective might displease the culprits and cause them commit another mass murder. Well, it is just a possibility, right? But I can't bring myself to trust the servants yet. And that doesn't mean I only suspect them. Don't you think there might be some mastermind behind all this? A mastermind? Why do you say that?
Junker and Ashima.
It's just a feeling. Think about it. What the word servant literally means. It means someone who serves someone else's arms and legs, right? It was a bunch of Urashima family members who got killed, so naturally there must be someone involved who stands to gain from that result. This was so plain and clear. The Shiramiya family had been right in the middle of discussion about who would distribute the inheritance when grandfather died. If this case followed the standard of form of any class of mystery novel, the crime was definitely caused by someone who had ties to the Shiramiya family and who was involved in the inheritance problem. Aunt Ava probably read a few books in that genre herself. Her argument may have had a few blind assumptions in it, but it was a standard conclusion that anyone might have reached. Drink your water! Drink it!
Yes, Rudolph! Rudolph-sama.
Oh my gosh. I think most people would end up suspecting the servants even if they used different reasoning to get there. Especially the story about the key to the shutter. That made it very easy to suspect that one of the servants was involved. And that's why I don't like it. What do you mean you don't like it? Nah, just talking to myself. I tried to dodge her questions by joking, but I couldn't erase the sense of unease welling up inside me. After all, her conclusion was such an easy one to reach. A conclusion that anyone could reach. And I couldn't just be satisfied with that. If I tried spinning the chessboard around, like I'd learned from Kiri-san, this is exactly why a servant couldn't possibly be the culprit. If the servants were really the culprit, they wouldn't hide the bodies in such a place connected to themselves. Why on earth would they use the Rose Garden shed if they were the ones in charge of the key and could unlock it? The police would probably immediately pursue whoever had been in control of the key. It was even possible that some facts might come to light as a result. The more we think of the servants as the culprits, the less reason they had to carry the bodies into the storehouse. But what if they knew we'd think that and put the corpses in the storehouse for that very reason? No, that's completely impossible. When the police come and inspect the scene of the crime, they'll probably uncover many things. No matter how carefully the culprits carried out that murder, some traces will definitely be found. In other words, they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. If you think about it this way and look at this murder game from the culprit side, it's hard to imagine why they'd want to call attention to the corpses. Once the corpses were found, it could result in someone sending a police report, or it might make the remaining people more cautious, or it might make the survivors start to search for the culprit. None of these things would make life any easier for the culprit. It's just like the words of the main character's mother in a novel. It's just like the word of the main character's mother in a novel I've recently read called Higurashi no Higurashi no Naku Koro ni.
The manga? What?
Every story needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. Eliminating that beginning is essential for the perfect crime. Right now, we don't know where grandfather is. We don't know, so Higurashi is canon in the world of Umineko. Right now, we don't know where grandfather is. We don't know if he's already become a victim or if he is one of the culprits. But this state of confusion must be beneficial to the killer. The culprit has absolutely nothing to gain by showing us the bodies in such an obvious way and making us all realise there's been a murder. The fact is, this is the perfect place to spin the chessboard around. In other words, showing us the corpses in such a flashy way must be the culprit's goal in and of itself. So, at the very least, the appearance of 6 corpses meant more than the depths of themselves. In other words, the culprit wanted this murder on display. To whom? To us. This is a message. The culprit's trying to shove something in our faces. I don't know what it is. At this point in time, this vulgar mass murder isn't making me feel anything except malice directed towards all of us. Malice towards all of us. Is it? Each one of us survivors has some kind of connection to one of the 6 victims. Uncle Klaus's death brought Jessica the grief of losing a family member. The deaths of Dad and Kiri-san brought me sorrow, while Aunt Rose's death brought Maria sorrow. Did it? Did it? Maria didn't look particularly sad. Goda-san's death probably shocked his fellow servants, and Shannon-chan's death brought the grief both to George Anarchy, who had proposed to her, and Kanokun, who had loved her like an older sister. Everyone now on this island has received an equal amount of sadness. Aunt Eva was sure the servants were in cahoots. But then, how could you possibly explain Goda-san and Shana-chan? At any rate, by this argument, the grief caused by the 6 deaths hit everyone but Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi. Even Aunt Eva, who had directed suspicion at the servants and acted as though she herself was beyond suspicion, could not be ruled out as a suspect. In the first place, she was able to argue that the servants were suspicious by focusing on the shutters and the key. But if you look at it from the perspective of motive and who would it gain, Aunt Ava's name rises to the top of the list. I know what you're thinking, Bella-kun. Huh? Oh no, please don't tell anybody about how my head's so full of obscene stuff. I'm the one who's going to gain the most from these murders. Since I'm going to be suspected anyway, I might as well get it out in the open. I tried to dodge the issue by joking around, but apparently it didn't work. The inheritance will be divided into as many parts as there are siblings. But right now, I'm the only one of the 4 left. All of the assets of the Ishimiya family will become mine. If Uncle Hideyoshi heard you, he'd say, could you give it a rest? It's not funny. I'm sorry. I was just fooling around since I'm going to be suspected anyway, no matter how much I tried to smooth it over. That's why, from my point of view, this murder might have been designed to cast suspicion on me. Unfortunately, my alibi for last night is weak. Could you tell me a little bit more about last night? As you know, the discussion between me and the siblings about how to slice up and eat the inheritance continued until late into the night. But I don't know how late it lasted. My husband and I had woken up early that morning. We were so sleepy, and a little past midnight, they let us go. We then returned to the guest house and rested there. Can anyone other than Uncle Hideyoshi prove that? No, wait, it's not like I suspect you or anything, okay? Oh, are you sure about that? I don't know if it counts as proof, but when we returned to the guest house, we were greeted by Genji-san, who asked if we needed a towel. I think it should be enough to prove that we returned to the guest house a little after midnight. Though, if my theory was correct, the servants would all be in cahoots, and that wouldn't actually make for much of an alibi. Hey, you've got a point there. I guess that means I'm playing detective with the real culprit right now, huh? Ha! However, let me say this, for my honour's sake. If I was after the inheritance, I'd never commit such a bizarre set of murders. After all, if I wanted to make them forfeit their rights to their inheritance, it wouldn't matter me. It wouldn't matter to me how they died. It'd be much smarter of me to try and make their deaths look like accidents. Especially if you're assuming I laid out some careful plan that involved even the servants. You've got a point there. If you're killing someone for personal gain, you shouldn't make it look like a murder. Exactly. That's why I'm in such a blue mood. The police would probably treat me like the mastermind and investigate all kinds of things. Not fun at all.
All kinds of things. Oh.
Aunt Ava shrugged with a bitter smile. It was just as easy to suspect Aunt Ava as it was suspect the servants. If we spin the chessboard around, can we stop spinning the fucking chessboard around? The chessboard is spinning. The knight has fallen on the floor. The queen is stuck on with super glue. It's like, come on.
That's his special interest, flipping a chessboard.
Not flipping it. If you
just
flipped the
confirmed.
chessboard, everything would be on the floor. Does that make it impossible for the culprit to be her, suspicious as she is? However, if that sort of argument always works, the motive can never help us in any way. No, that can't be right. Knowing the motive must give us powerful clues towards knowing the culprit. That's why the murders from all time periods disguise crimes in complicated ways, cleverly preventing their motives from being discovered. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Every time I spin the chessboard around, it keeps flipping from front to back and back to front. Are my thoughts bringing me closer to the truth? Or are they...
Are they?
Are they?
No.
Aunt Ava didn't want to talk any more than that, so I folded my eyes and headed towards the window to cool my head a little. Smashes my head against the window. As long as I looked over to the parlour, I saw George, Anarchy, and the others gathering and talking. It looked like they were talking about the magic circle that had been painted onto the shutter. Uncle Hideyoshi thought back to that time. He started drawing the shape in the margins of Maria's notebook. I see. Since Maria was second only to grandfather in knowledge of the occult, she might understand what it meant. I think it was probably something like that. There was a mark that looked like a variation of a cross, and then surrounding the circle around the perimeter, closely packed strange letters on all four sides of the cross, and in the four corners there was something written. Oh, this is him talking. It didn't look like that alphabet or something. It was what they call ancient characters. And then around the top of the circumference there was a small mark. 5 small circles arranged in a cross sign. And straight lines connecting them. Yeah, there was definitely something like that. Like that drawing there. Yeah, there's no mistake in that shape. I don't understand the thin characters, but the arrangement was nearly the same. Everyone was staring down at the shape, so I started staring down at it too. From what I heard, this has been painted on the walls of the shutter of the storehouse with some material that looked like blood. I see, this sure is unsettling. Grandfather is probably the only one who'd want to draw something that weird. Seriously, where did he go? I want to grab him and ask him what the hell this is supposed to mean. Jessica's voice contained impatience and anger. She hadn't gone so far as to say grandfather was the culprit, but she seemed sure that grandfather knew something about the culprit's background. Of course, if you were searching for a link connecting the Ishimiya family to the occult, 10 out of 10 people would think of grandfather. Also, to a person who knew nothing of the occult, this strange mark would have no meaning. Which meant that this might have been something addressed to grandfather. That's right, the reason the crime was shown to the survivors was so they'd find this. In that case, where had grandfather, the essential recipient of this message, disappeared off to? Does this shape ring any bells? Hello? Maria looked at the shape with a serious face. Maybe she was enthusiastic because this was her area of expertise. However, her appearance was that of someone separated from the events at hand, as though this thing hadn't been drawn on the shutter closed around her mother's corpse. My first impression was that the design resembled a German cross. Ah, it certainly does have that kind of design. Does that mean it's something to do with Germany? The German cross was originally a crest from a religious order of knights that was supposed to protect pilgrims traveling to sacred places. So, in other words, this magic circle might have had some religious meaning? This is starting to sound like gibberish. When I looked over... When I looked over at all of them, preparing to jump into the discussion, something shocked me. Maria was smiling, an eerie, incomprehensible expression on her face. It was almost as if she was making fun of everyone's ignorance. It was an expression I wouldn't have dreamed to find in Maria's face. And she laughed. That eerie, jarring laugh was something I didn't want to believe was possible, even though I was looking at it right in front of my eyes. Oh! It really... Hold on, original images. Which one's more disturbing?
I mean, I'd be friends with the one in the later image. I feel like I would I don't know.
This
I feel
one,
like she looks a bit I hate to say it about a 9-year-old, but she looks stoned in the original image.
this one, yeah. She looks not all there, which I guess is supposed to be the point. This one kind of disturbed me because it's got like a banana mouth going on, which is not normal. You people aren't even close. Can't you tell just by looking? While everyone was busy being scared out of their wits, Maria kept on cackling happily to herself. After a while, their laugh was suddenly and abruptly cut off, but her expression still looked like it belonged to someone completely different to Maria. This is the 7th circle of the sun. The characters are written in Hebrew. Give it here. Sure. Maria stole the writing materials from the stunned Hideyoshi's hand. She then started drawing another magic circle with a rustle right next to the one that Hideyoshi had drawn. See? It looks sort of like this, right? Yes. It was... Maria, incredible. You really do know a lot. Jessica tried to smooth things over by praising Maria. Maybe she wanted to confirm this was still the Maria we all knew so well. But Maria didn't answer her in any way particular. Maria began swiftly writing unfamiliar characters in the corners of the shape. When Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo saw them, their eyes immediately began to open wide. Written on the top and the bottom, left and right, are the names of the angels who preside over wind, fire, earth, and water. Chasan, Ariel... I'm going to fuck up
Ariel!
Ariel...
4 o'clock!
I think that's supposed to be like a four lock and Talyahad.
I read that as Thailand in my head.
I think it's Talyahad. And the 4 corners are the names of the 4 great kings: Ariel, Seraph. I know that's a th sound, but I wonder if that's a t sound. Tharshis and Cherub.
Maybe we should ask Leisha, she might know this.
Maybe. Is that
Her
what you
special
saw?
interest is the opposite of Maria's special interest, but it's in the same realm.
Same wheelhouse.
Yeah.
If they hadn't been able to correctly write that they'd seen, when they were once again showed something identical, it wasn't difficult for them to realize the two were the same. When Maria asked them whether it matched, Uncle Hideyoshi and Dr. Nanjo nodded over and over again. There's no mistake, that's it. I'm sure there were characters that looked like that. How are you able to write something like that? There are also two characters written around the circumference. I know. Like this, right? Maria quickly began to surround the circumference with more Hebrew writing. It's from Psalms of the Old Testament, the 16th and 17th verses of the 106th Psalm. You must have at least read the Bible, right? Acting as though knowing this was common sense, Maria laughed. For a while, everyone, including me, was at a loss for words. A little later, George Anarchy returned to his senses and slowly managed to speak. That's incredible. I'm surprised. So, what meaning does this magic circle have? It's a magic circle to borrow the power of the sun. He who wears it as the talisman drawn in gold shall be able to break free from the bonds of any prison and receive the power to gain freedom. To break free from bonds and gain freedom? It sounds deep. The word bonds is not limited in its interpretation to some kind of physical object. Therefore, it doesn't hold any meaning for people locked up in actual jail. It can also refer to the release from mental bonds, such as ties of obligation and an inescapable fate. Ties of obligation and inescapable fate, you say? That's also pretty deep. But I really don't understand. What does this have to do with those 6 bodies? Far from being released, they were killed and stuffed in the storehouse, weren't they? It's not like the magic circle was drawn for their sakes. The 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle. It is truly pitiable. What do you mean? What in the world do you mean when you talk about the 6 of them were there for the sake of the magic circle? Maria lifted up her pointed finger and waggled it as if she was making fun of us. That's written around the circumference. Can't you read it? Psalms chapter 16 verses 16 and 17. Chapter 116 verses 16 and 17. I'll read it for you. The Lord has freed me from my chains. I will offer to you the sacrifice of thanksgiving and will call on the name of the Lord. See, you say. I've got no idea what you're talking about. You're saying the human sacrifices? If what Maria had just read aloud was a vital part of the magic circle, then it was saying the sacrifices had to be offered in order for this magic circle to be effective. So, human sacrifices had been offered inside the storehouse where the magic circle had been drawn. A heartbeat later, everyone else seemed to reach the same conclusion. Some people were shocked and others spat out that this was insane as they punched their knees. This was starting to get incredibly disturbing, and we couldn't accept it or understand it. I don't care what kind of magic circle curses other people believe in, I won't pick a fight with them. But did they really kill Dad and the rest as sacrifices for crap like that? I just couldn't stand that feeling. Compared to this, I preferred it when they were still disgusted by the theory about a fight over the inheritance. As I started getting pissed off with the feeling between anger and sadness, I broke from the circle, everyone was in, and returned once again to the window. Something had gone insane since yesterday. There was that letter from the witch Beatrice that Maria had read aloud at last night's dinner. Ever since that point, it feels like this whole mansion and this whole island have been getting more and more firmly locked inside some kind of bizarre world. That's right. When I think back on it, that letter was an invitation from the witch. The ruler of the nighttime island had invited us inhabitants of the day into another world. The phone and the radio had been interrupted and the island was shut off by the typhoon, so you really could call this place another world cut off from the real one by now. Yeah, as this island is now, it's perfectly normal for the witch to send us letters and for human sacrifices to be offered for the sake of magic circles. So, what will happen next? Will some weird people wearing goat masks start doing a Bond festival dance or something? Ah, it's hopeless. Hopeless! I don't get it. The insides of my head are all screwed up and I don't even know what to think. Anger, sadness, the opposing emotions all swelled up together as they started to suck me in. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and trust to my mind and body as I started getting sucked in. Sucked in! Sorry. As I started losing heart, I began recall- Stop! Back! What the fuck? Hello? Oh my god, I'm actually
Hi?
Sorry, no. There we go. I was trying to fix the thing so I could read what went past. Unable to resist, I could do nothing but cover my eyes with my hands and trust my mind and body was getting sucked in. As I started losing heart, I began to recall a memory from when I was small. It was from when I was very young.
Little battler.
Little battler. I had unfortunately seen a scary cult movie on TV, and for a while I hadn't been able to go to the bathroom by myself. That old bastard gave an exaggerated laugh and said this. Oh, why? I thought I escaped him!
He's back, Brooklyn!
I thought I escaped him! This is so unfair. I thought I escaped this fucker. Sorry, don't mind me just screenshotting this hello thumbnail.
This dude is gonna be like half of the thumbnails at this point.
It is. He is. Hey, Battler. Why do you think they go to all the trouble to make movies like this about demons and the occult and such? It's because they don't exist. Something that ridiculous can't be found anywhere on the planet. Because they don't exist. People want to see them, and then they go off a lot about making it. That's why those occult movies just make me laugh. If I were forced to choose, I'd say, rather than demons and monsters, this year's earnings call and angry wives are 10 million, 100 million, 100 billion times scarier. I'll go further, okay? From my point of view, getting scared is a recreational emotion, something for people who've got room to relax both in their hearts and their lifestyles. They had so much free time, and I didn't know what to do with it, so in order to entertain their mind with unusual emotions, people started creating a culture with demons and the occult stuff.
Yay! We got a Rudolph monologue!
Drink your water! Seriously, why have I been acting so damn thick-headed? I was totally taken in. Don't try and mess with me. This is the human world. I don't give a damn about witches, demons, magic circles. I don't care about algebra, circumference, and sacrifices. The humans who killed Dad and everyone else is still on this island. That's all there is to it, right? The next person who started speaking in my heart was Kiri-san. You see, in both chess and shogi, when you reach the very last stage of the game and get closer and closer concerning your opponents, the number of optimal moves you could possibly make gets smaller and smaller. Therefore, you're backing someone against the wall, or someone's doing the same to you. Both players' moves become infinitely easier to read. In other words, when you're completely cornered and you think you have no moves left, that is the moment when it's easiest to read your opponent. However, when a person is forced into a defensive position, they can't help but lose their ability to think clearly, so they aren't able to get their minds around their opponent's moves. That's when you spin the chessboard around. With all my strength, I slapped my face with both my hands. Now my eyes were truly open. When you don't understand anything, you're completely cornered, just like I am now. Isn't that the perfect time to spin the chessboard around? While on the defensive, we can't even guess at the culprit's scheme. If we spin it around and look at it that way, just what might we see? First off, at the time of the culprit committed the murders, they knew the island was being cut off by the typhoon. Therefore, they should have understood that even if they carried out the murders, they wouldn't be able to get away early in the next morning. In short, the culprit has begun without securing a way to escape. Furthermore, that bastard tossed the corpses into the storehouse. Then was even kind enough to say, "Here they are!" with that weird bit of graffiti. In other words, since we'd probably find the corpses sooner or later, they wanted to show us to them. If we'd all been dim and hadn't noticed the storage shed, the culprit's goal would not have been achieved, would it? If you think about it this way, that bastard of a culprit, since this morning, they must have been watching our every move with bated breath. After all, if we'd been so kind to discover what was on the storehouse, all of that hard work and preparation they did last night would have just gone poof. What if the culprit wanted to make us feel by showing us the corpses in the storehouse? All 6 of the bodies had their face noticeably destroyed. Was it a grudge? A warning? The defacement of the bodies had occurred after their deaths. So, it had been a means by which the culprit had killed. It didn't mean anything to those who had been killed. It did have meaning to those who found the bodies. The culprit wanted to make it appear that they had been killed so brutally. Ha! Oh. Ha! After thinking this way, I really want to tell that bastard to stop taking me so lightly. Who just danced to that tune? If you're told please be scared, you can't just stay. You can't just say, really? Sure thing. When someone tells the great Shiramiya battler, the entrance is right here, I'm the kind of guy who will start wanting to sneak through the window. The next thing that had me concerned was that so-called magic circle on the shutter. As Maria, who had shown that her knowledge of the occult rival grandfathers, had recognized, the magic circle was genuine. They must have drawn that thing in pitch black darkness, taking a lot of time and holding an umbrella in one hand. Isn't that amount of hard work and perfectionism impressive? That purpose would have been worth all of that effort. What purpose would have been worth all that effort? If we were looking for a fan of the occult, in this mansion, most likely all of us would naturally suspect Grandfather. Did they want us to make us think Grandfather was involved? But if that's what they wanted, they could have just drawn any old scribble that looked like a magic circle. It wasn't like any of us amateurs would be able to tell the difference between a genuine or fake. However, this magic circle was genuine, and furthermore, it had even been written in Hebrew. So, this magic circle had a message that could only be understood by someone with the knowledge of the occult. A message is a form of communication. By sending it, they were hoping for a reaction. A reaction? For some reason, we couldn't find Grandfather now. I don't know how Grandfather might have spotted the magic circle on the shutter, but did he choose to hide himself in reaction to that? No. Was it a trap to make us suspect that Grandfather had participated? You can read it either way. Damn, that's annoying. What kind of reaction was Grandfather hoping to get out of us by putting on this occult show? Somehow, that felt like the culprit's weak point. The letter from Beatrice that Maria had read aloud during last night's dinner sprang back into my mind. This was a freak who'd asked us to enjoy the battle of wits. Isn't that interesting? This is a battle of wits between us and a witch. Will we be sucked up by her occult game first? Or will we pull off her fake skin first?
He keeps talking about sucking. Just get him a rose toy already.
Battler wants to be sucked, fucked, dined, and wined, you know? Oh my gosh. I keep getting phlegm up in my nose.
No, Brooklyn. It is
No.
that time of year, admittedly.
Oh, it's because I've been talking for an hour straight.
Do you have tissues?
It's a whole day until the typhoon passes. Why not enjoy ourselves? Crack?
Crack? Or clock?
No. I finally noticed the inside of the parlour had gone quiet again. Everyone had sunk into their favourite sofas, some deep in thought, some irritated, some acting depressed. Maria was once again enjoying the TV as if she'd never left it. Why is the TV still working? It looked like she found the commercials more fun than the boring program as she happily yelled uwu and giggled. I stared at each person's appearance in turn. If there isn't a 19th person, the culprit must be in this room. It's George, get him. Right
Where's
now.
the shot of Kumasawa? I'm not even there!
No, because she left with Aunt Natsuhi.
Oh my, but she's me. I'm an old woman.
Right now, Aunt Natsuhi's searching the mansion with the servants, right? Then we shouldn't say in this room. In this mansion is where the culprit has to be. After all, it's possible Aunt Natsuhi was behind this, and we still can't deny that one of the servants might be the killer. Anyone could be guilty. Still, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest sure are taking their time. Of course, it's not a small mansion, but isn't the taking a little too long to walk around, checking the windows and doors? Just as I was thinking this, Aunt Natsuhi and the rest returned. Not one of them was missing. But our relief was short-lived. Everyone looked at Aunt Natsuhi in shock. The talk I'd had with Aunt Eva started to creep back into my mind. The possibility the culprits had enough in numbers or weapons to kill all those six at once. Whoa! Forgive me?
Let the French Revolution begin.
Let's begin. You have fucked with me. Now you're going to find out. Fuck around and find out, motherfuckers. Forgive me if I startled you. I brought this to be prepared for the worst. After all, that thing in Aunt Natsuhi's hand was a rifle. At a glance, its silhouette looks a lot like a hunting gun. But it was unusually short and kind of looked like a kid-sized weapon. However, it had the weightiness to it that made it clear it was no kid's toy. That gun is Kinzo-san's, isn't it? Did you know about it? That's right. I remembered it was in Father's old collection, and I managed to find it. Wow! Awesome! Natsuhi-san, is that a real thing? Yes, it's real. It can fire live ammunition. Long ago, Father used it to scare away wild birds. That takes me back. Where did you find that thing? No matter how much I asked him to let me touch it, he never let me lay even one finger on it. Oh? Grandfather had one of these? I didn't know that. Long ago, Grandfather was really addicted to cowboy films. That generation really liked this kind of rifle. Is that a Winchester? But I've never seen one that short before. Ah! I remember that. It's that gun. That really takes me back. one of those steam. It. That's
Lightning
the one.
McQueen!
Damn. That's the one Steve McQueen fired off and wanted, alive or dead. Father sure has some good taste. It is an item the master ordered specifically from America long ago. This is why those fuckers have American accents. As you can see, it is a working gun, so please don't tell anyone about this.
He was quite fond of it after he managed to acquire it. It seems the workings that ejected the cartridges were more interested in him than shooting it, and he played with it back in the forest all the time.
Still, it's rather disturbing. Are you sure you should be dragging this out? This is to prepare for the worst. There was probably more than one offender involved.
We need to cosplay them.
Yes. Furthermore, those horrible people killed 6 of us, including my husband. I have responsibility to protect everyone until tomorrow in my husband's place. As Natsuki-san said this, she slumped down into the sofas and took a deep breath. She had been trying to find grandfather, as well as check the doors and windows. Since grandfather wasn't with her, she probably still didn't know where he was. I carefully checked all of the doors and windows throughout the mansion. However, we must be prepared for anything. Everyone, I think we would be best if we remained here. Oh, good point. If everyone gathers here, then we can all feel more secure by keeping an eye on each other. What do you mean by that, Everson? Nothing really. I'm just agreeing with your opinion, aren't I? There was a stormy atmosphere between the two of them. Did you think, if you think about who was the most suspicious from the inheritance problem standpoint, Aunt Ava was the obvious answer. However, there was no proof Aunt Natty was innocent. No, if you view Beatrice's letter as one of grandfather's complicated pranks, and think of this as a crime just an extension of that, there's more than enough reason to even suspect grandfather. Also, Aunt Natsuhi thought the criminal was on the outside, but Aunt Ava thought the criminal was on the inside. In short, it was the question on whether or not a 19th person exists. That same question has been repeated endlessly since last night's dinner with the letter from the witch who called herself Beatrice. So, was the culprit among us? Among us? Or not?
Among us?
And did the witch Beatrice exist or not? If you assume that something as stupid as a witch can't exist, you're basically saying that one of these relatives here who share a common bloodline is the culprit. If that was too unpleasant, it'd be much more comfortable to simply accept that the fairy tale-like character of the witch... A witch? A witch drawing a bizarre magic circle and offering human sacrifices? If I could accept that rubbish, I'd be able to trust all the people in this room. However, damn common sense got in the way. It kept repeating that witches don't exist. In that case, the culprit must be among us.
Among us.
Among us.
Among us.
Among us. In the middle of the seemingly endless rain, none of us could break the silence. Oh, there we go.
Crack!
There we go.
Umineko Karuni.
Karoni. 1 o'clock.
1 p.m.
Okay. I might actually cut this one short just because I've been yapping quite a bit.
You have been yapping. Oh my goodness, I think... Wait, also I think we're almost to the end of the first manga volume, if I remember correctly. Oh my goodness, Kumasawa might have more lines. Oh my goodness.
Do you want to see if this is Kumasawa, or do you... We should probably
she
stop.
might not be here, but like the servants are in the scene, so...
Well, we might cut it short for today, just because
We are recording tomorrow.
Yeah, and recording the next day. So,
Yeah.
we'll stop this one here for now. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as you could. This is probably the shortest episode I've uploaded yet, but my brain is not functioning quite well, and I've got Gulliver here trying to support me, but it's not helping very much because he's very, very silly, very goofy. Umineko. So, I will see you guys next week for the next episode of Umineko Monday. Bye!